you. My name is Lauren Hartling. I'm one of the interpreters at the Vancouver Aquarium, giving you away from here at the front of this theater. You can't turn it off, can't turn it off. I wanted to start off, first of all, by asking everyone in this room and the room next door, I can't see you next door, but I'm assuming you'll respond, but how many of you have ever heard of a false killer whale before? Yeah, that is the first time I knew what the outcome of that question would actually be. Out of curiosity, who here has heard of the story of Chester at the Vancouver Aquarium? All right, there's some hands that still aren't going up, so I'm going to give you a bit of a brief kind of check into this darling. As we heard, this is the face of Chester. He is a false killer whale, or Pseudorca crassidens. He was found as a 1-month-old baby who had washed ashore on the coast of Vancouver Island, just south of Tofino on Chesterman Beach. Now, he's super lucky. He was found by people who happened just to be walking along the shoreline, enjoying their morning, and they saw this thing that shouldn't be there. And luckily, they did the right thing. They called the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada, who in turn contacted the Vancouver Aquarium Marine Mammal Rescue Centre. Now, he was in very serious condition when he was found. He was very weak, emaciated, would not have survived had he been left out, as he was only 1 month old, and as you can imagine, typically animals when they are 1 month old, quite helpless. So in Chester's case, he was taken to our rescue center. We have some rescue staff even in here who worked with him. He has gotten incredibly strong and healthy. Now, Chester is an interesting story because he's what we call a non-releasable animal, meaning he cannot go back out to the ocean. He would not survive. And that's a determination made by the government. The Vancouver Aquarium does not make that decision. That's the government looking at all sorts of data saying, you know what, this animal is not a good candidate for release. So he was deemed non-releasable in May. And then in June of this year, he was moved into one of our main habitats as the Vancouver Aquarium was deemed a place that would be able to house Chester. Now, with all that being said, basically myself as an interpreter, my coworkers, we get paid to talk. We love it. It's kind of an awesome job. In preparation of talking about Chester, we essentially had a year to do all sorts of research on false killer whales. Has anyone here ever done research on false killer whales in particular? A couple of hands are going up. All right, I'm not going to make myself look silly then. I won't go into too many details, but essentially, we looked at every single paper possible. We read everything we could, lifespan, diet, where they live, vocalizations, everything. And we got super excited, and we were so prepared to talk about this incredible animal with our visitors once they got to actually see him. Now, maybe I had overplanned, or maybe I hadn't necessarily prepared myself, but in fact, a lot of the common questions we got from people were not what types of range of frequency of sound or the false killer whales produce vocalizations, or how deep can they dive, and how many different fish are they getting while they're down there. The most common question we got was, why do you call him a fake killer whale? Legit, people actually thought that we, the Vancouver Aquarium, had named him a false killer whale. And so a lot of our conversations ended up being, what is a false killer whale? Hence the title of this talk. It was quite interesting for us to be able to go through and try to have these conversations with visitors who had never heard of a false killer whale before. And back to the question I asked you at the beginning, how many of you had heard of a false killer whale? Well, when we do a talk to about 200 people, maybe 2 hands go up. So you actually have a whole audience of people who have zero knowledge that even something beyond a bottlenose dolphin exists in the ocean. So it's really interesting for us as interpreters, taking researched information that you yourselves have spent your lives collecting and trying to find a way of engaging our audience with that information. Now, most of the common questions we get are, what are a false killer whale? Why do you call it a false killer whale? Which actually led to some interesting research on my own part about finding out that it was in 1846 was a subfossil of a skull that was found that looked kind of like a killer whale's skull, but not quite. So I guess the researchers were like, hey, let's call it a false killer whale. But it wasn't until 20 years later that an actual live specimen was found. So having that information actually helps to answer that question for visitors that, yeah, sometimes names that animals have don't necessarily make sense. And luckily there is a hashtag that came out. Keely showed it to me, hashtag stupid common names. Some of you as researchers might be able to appreciate that, trying to explain why a fur seal is not actually a seal but a sea lion. So essentially, what it comes down to on our side of things at the aquarium is absolutely, we want to be able to connect people to the animals that are at the aquarium so that they themselves will feel inspired to protect these rare animals, a creature that is rarely seen on the coast of British Columbia. And in fact, in the case of Chester, the last time false killer whales were seen around BC was about 10 years ago. And even when he was found, as far as I'm aware, there were no sightings of false killer whales in the area. Now, we still don't know too much about his origins, but it seems that he does not hail from the Hawaiian, false killer whales. There's a possibility maybe he's from California, but we actually don't know. But this is an incredible opportunity for more research to happen with the help of an animal that, if it wasn't for people walking along the shoreline, we wouldn't actually have. So Chester, living at the Vancouver Aquarium, really helping to open up conversations and hopefully opening up more opportunities for research. But for ourselves as interpreters, really mastering how to connect people with something so rare was a bit of a fun opportunity this summer. And now we are getting folks coming in saying, yes, I've heard of Chester, because he's kind of a YouTube sensation as well, playing with the rain and just being all over cute. Especially now he's only 1.5. He's got a lot more growing to do and a lot more experiences for us to get to share with all sorts of visitors. Have you seen Chester yet? Only a couple of hands are going up, folks. You got to come to the Vancouver Aquarium. There we go. Come to the Vancouver Aquarium, check them out, and help us share the story of this incredible whale, and we'll further some more information on this species as well. Thank you so much. He's cute. That's kind of where you can leave it at.
Any questions for Lauren before we break?
Current weight and length, I tried to get that information before I got here. He's roughly 9 feet long. When he was moved on June 25th, he weighed about 450 pounds. He's been in this habitat now for about 4 months, 4.5 months. I believe he's around 500, but we really don't have a way to measure him right now weight-wise. We're working up towards that of a trained behavior for him to get to weigh himself. But we do take regular length and girth measurements, and he seems to be upwards of about 9 feet long. Yeah, conversion.